announcing that this was going to be his last year. The Australian Open could potentially be his last tournament. He'd like to play through Wimbledon. What was your first reaction when you heard that?
Well, we've known that he's been in pain for about 20 months. He's worked so hard in the off seasons. He worked with so many doctors. He had surgery last year, right after the Australian Open. And I think that it's obviously extremely sad because he wanted to finish at Wimbledon. And for him to kind of have that reality set in that he might not be able to make it, it's always sad when an athlete isn't able to finish on their own terms.
I felt as though he knew he was going to retire, and it started in Washington, D.C. when he played a 3 a.m. match, broke down after winning the match and cried. I think that's when he realized, I just can't do this. I can't play. But he kept hoping, kept trying, and, now he's finally realized what I think he sort of realized then.
Well, if you didn't see it yesterday, this was the scene yesterday in Melbourne. Andy Murray having a press conference. He sits down to begin this press conference. You can see very emotional and actually would get up and leave his seat, leave the chair, almost breaking down there, and then would come right back and sit down. He would leave for just a moment, come back into the room, sit down again. And this was a statement that he started himself. He was not asked a question. He just told everybody exactly what was on his mind, and this was it.
Sorry. And I told them that, I can't, I can't keep doing this, and that I needed to have like an end point, because I was sort of just playing with no idea of when the pain was gonna stop. And I felt like making that decision. I said to my team, look, I think I can kind of get through this until Wimbledon. That is where I would like to. That's where I would like to stop playing. But I'm also not certain I'm able to do that.
Andy, does that mean that this might be your last tournament?
Yeah, I think there's a chance of that. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's a chance of that for sure because, yeah, like I said, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'm able to play through the pain, for another 4 or 5 months.
Absolutely heartbreaking stuff there. Andy posted this on his Instagram account, a photo with his mom, Judy, saying best way to feel better after a tough day is a big cuddle from your mom. Genuinely been very touched by all of the messages and support from everybody today. It means a lot and has made me feel much more positive than when I woke this morning. Thank you so much. With the heart there. Obviously, Andy talking about trying to end at Wimbledon, which means so much to him. He was the first British man to win that title since 1936. But, Jimmy, to see Andy so emotional there, what was that like for you?
Well, it was horrible to see. And one thing that you have to remember when you're a tennis player, you are professional at about 8 years old. That's when you decide you're going to become a tennis player. And he's worked so hard. He's worked harder than most throughout his entire career to be that professional tennis player. And it's sort of suddenly cruelly taken away from him, not on his own terms. And I think that's the thing that he's having trouble dealing with. It's always tough when you're done because your identity is, I was a tennis player. That's no longer the case. He's pretty young. He's got a long life to live. And for me, I just hope he has no pain as he goes through life because that's going to be even worse if that hip continues to hurt always. When you see him walk, you know that he's in pain, just the way he's walking.
Yeah, I think that was reality right there, kind of setting in. I think he said he talked to his team in mid-December, and he wanted that end point of Wimbledon. Why not finish where you've won 2 Wimbledon titles. But I think that's this week, after he practiced with Djokovic a couple of days ago, he was probably realizing that I'm not going to make it there. He's talked about the fact that it hurts to put his shoes and his socks on. I mean, that is a lot of pain. How are you going to go out there and play against Bautista Agut, 3 out of 5 set match? And why would you want to put yourself and continue to put yourself through that? And that's very tough to take as a 31-year-old, because he's so fit, and he's probably thinking, remember he came back from that back surgery, 3 years ago, and he's probably thinking, wow, okay, I got out of that, I can play for a number of years. So I think reality's hitting. And I love the picture. That made me cry. I cried about 50 times yesterday, but that made me cry. At the end of the day, for a grown man to show that on social media, that he is crazy about his mom, and that always helps. I mean, Judy has been there all the way, and she was the one that she actually had to get a loan for Andy when he was 13 to send him to Barcelona to train, because she realized that in Scotland he wasn't going to get to that next level. So that family is held strong together. She's been there every step of the way, and it's nice that he felt better.
One of the things for Andy is he was able to handle pain so well, and you feel that when you're training as hard as he used to train, and I think that actually hurt him with the hip, because the hip started bothering him, but he could handle the pain so well that he kept playing and kept playing and kept grinding away, and eventually it was too bad to be fixed.
Tracy, you brought up earlier, for an athlete and somebody who got to #1 in the world, to have their career end not on their terms is tragic. That happened to you. What advice would you have for Andy?
Yeah, I mean, he's older, and 31 with a beautiful wife, 2 beautiful children. He's got a hotel in Scotland. I think he's got so many things to fall back on. I was much, much younger, but I mean, you brought up that fact that we want to go out on our own terms. I was like 22 years old, so I wouldn't give him any advice. I think he's a brilliant man, and I think that when he has the chance to exhale and to take a big breath in, it's going to be painful now, obviously in his hip, but more in his psyche, because he wants to play tennis. He has a passion for tennis. I think when he has a chance to exhale, he's probably even exceeded his expectations. 3 majors, 2 of those being Wimbledon, the first British man to win in 77 years, knighted by the Queen. He's got a lot in his future, but it's just very tough to take in right now. It is, because you made the point, when you wake up as an athlete, every day you've got those goals. You're going forward. Those are your dreams. What can I improve today? How can I get better by a little bit? All of a sudden,
it's
that's
gone.
not there when you wake up.
What do I do?
Okay.
I'll have some coffee?
Where do I go? Do I go to lunch?
Exactly.
It's a very difficult change.
Oh, we hope he can get through Wimbledon. Andy Roddick actually had an interesting thought last night on Twitter that even if he can't play in singles at Wimbledon, wouldn't it be cool if he could play doubles with his brother Jamie, maybe, if
Andy was asked
it got to that point?
And he said no. He said, would you ever play doubles? Because we see Bob Bryan coming back from the hip. And Andy said doubles is only half the court, but he said no, he wouldn't play doubles. Now, maybe that one special time.
I mean, it feels to me like he could play Wimbledon if he wanted to end it there, even if.
But if you can't
he wouldn't
practice,
be able to play well, he wouldn't practice, he wouldn't win, but he could play.
Just to walk out, I'm not sure he'd want that.
Yeah, it depends how he wants.
And I think those are all the emotions that are going through his head, all of the scenarios. How do I want this to end? Even against Bautista Agut, going out knowing that he can't play his best tennis. He needs his legs, and that's probably why he's got the bad hip and had the bad back, because he has a style of play where he needs to move and use that part of his game.
I would love for him to finish at Wimbledon, simply so that the crowd can give him what he's due, sort of the big grand.
So you want him to play?
Thank you. I want him to play, even if he goes and plays one game and says, "All right, I've had enough, thanks."
Just to get that reaction from the crowd, because he does deserve that. I mean,
he totally deserves it. He has to decide if he wants that.
Absolutely. Much of the tennis world sending their thoughts out to Andy Murray, and in the social net, you can see all of these tweets and Instagrams and comments. And we start with Juan Martín del Potro. Just watched his press conference. Please don't stop trying. Juan Martín is a guy that has been there in terms of coming back from injuries time and time again, and just telling Andy to keep fighting. You can imagine his pain and sadness, but with that love. We love you, Andy Murray, and we want to see you happy and doing well. Nick Kyrgios, a guy that has been mentored by Andy Murray from the young stages of his career. Says, you take me as a joker for most of the time, but hear me out on this one. I just want you to know, I'm sure you already do, but everybody wants you to keep fighting, keep being you. Obviously, good luck at the Australian Open. Andy Murray has been such a proponent for so many things, from equality to mental health awareness, and that's something that certainly Nick Kyrgios has benefited from. And you can see these photos that Nick put on his story as well. Billie Jean King putting out her thoughts about Andy Murray, such a champion on and off the court, and of course, not being able to retire on his own terms. But his voice for equality will inspire future generations. Much love to you and your family, because, you know, beyond the 3 Grand Slams, the 2 Olympic gold medals, the Davis Cup, all of those accomplishments, Andy Murray was a true warrior who proved that it was okay to show your emotions. That's not a weakness, that's a strength, and he really fought for equality.
He did. He came out for women in tennis, and he said at combined events, I want equal prize money, because there was another top male that said that they didn't think that it was right to have equal prize money, so Andy came out for that. He was also the one that came out with Amelie Mauresmo as his coach, the first really big male star to have a woman coach, and he had great success. He said that he felt that it was prejudice against her. When he would lose, they would blame it on Amelie, but his former coaches that were men, they wouldn't blame it on him. So he was very outspoken, and because of that, I think Judy has done a great job. She really raised those 2 sons beautifully.
I mean, it's been a golden age for tennis, for men's tennis, and he's right in that mix, obviously, with Federer, Nadal, Djokovic. They're all great, seemingly great people. Djokovic, I actually had hope that he was going to be the bad guy, but he's managed to not do it. And Murray's a great person, a great tennis player, a great champion. It's a shame to see what's happened to him.
Absolute legend, future Hall of Famer, and still playing. We'll see him in Monday, Australian Open, first round against Roberto Bautista Agut. Much more still to come here on Tennis Channel Live.